They say silence is peace, but silence, when shared with the wrong person, becomes a slow death. I used to believe love was built like architecture, patiently, brick by brick, with care and symmetry. But what no one tells you is that some foundations are poisoned from the start. You don't notice the cracks until the whole structure begins to hum, warning of collapse. My name is Elena Moreau, and the night my husband told me I wasn't fit to represent him, I realized the house I'd built wasn't a home, it was a cage. What he didn't know was that every beam, every marble floor, every share of the empire he worked for, bore my signature. He thought I was just the wife of the architect, but I was the architect of it all. The glass walls of our home in the Marine Hills reflected everything, except the truth. Christopher always said he liked transparency, but he lived behind more masks than anyone I'd ever met. That morning, he adjusted his cufflinks at the mirror, sleek and gleaming, just like the house. "You don't have to come tonight," he said casually, not even looking up from his reflection. "It's more of a networking thing, boring for you." "Networking," I repeated, my tone neutral. "With your partners or your admirer?" He smirked, catching my gaze in the mirror. "You're jealous, Elena. It doesn't suit you." "I'm not jealous," I said softly. "I'm observant." He left the room with a faint scent of cedarwood and arrogance. When the door clicked, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the faint distortion of my reflection in the glass. The kind that makes your face look slightly warped. That's what our life had become, a polished illusion, warped just enough to hide the cracks. Christopher was an architect in name only. He designed concepts, sketches, models, promises. I built the reality. When we married 5 years ago, I was already a silent investor in 3 real estate firms under a trust that bore no trace of my name. I'd spent years building quietly, converting family inheritance into an empire of properties that no one knew belonged to me. Christopher thought his firm's sudden rise came from his brilliance. It came from me, my money, my strategy, my team. But I let him believe it, because sometimes power is more useful when it's invisible. He used to call me his grounding force. I used to believe he meant it as love. Now I realize he meant the weight that keeps me from floating too high. The gilded envelope arrived on a Thursday afternoon, hand-delivered. The annual Visionary Awards Gala, honoring excellence in design and development. It was the event of the year, attended by every major investor, designer, and developer in San Francisco. And this year, Hale & Moreau, Christopher's firm, was shortlisted for the Architectural Innovation Award. When he came home that evening, he was glowing. "This is huge, Lena. Really huge. The board is expecting big press coverage, and—" He hesitated, avoiding my eyes. "You might not want to come." I raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" He sighed dramatically. "These events are very curated. You know how you get nervous around people. And you're—" He gestured vaguely toward me, as though the word he wanted to say was ordinary. "It's just not your world." "Then whose world is it?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer, but I already knew. Her name was Camille Hart, a partner from New York, recently transferred. I'd seen her name on his phone weeks ago, in messages that began formally and ended with "can't wait to see you tonight." I didn't confront him. I didn't need to. I had my own methods. Late that night, when he was asleep, I opened my encrypted laptop and logged into the back-end systems of Hale & Moreau, the architecture firm he called his baby. My access wasn't new. I'd built their financial infrastructure years ago through one of my holding companies. The data unfolded like a confession: expense reports, travel reimbursements. One in particular, a weekend retreat booked for 2 in Carmel by the Sea. Dates aligned perfectly with one of his client conferences. The hotel was one of mine. I smiled. When you build the world they live in, their secrets aren't hidden. They're simply mislabeled. I started tracing the threads. Every lie, every omission. His firm's biggest project, Echelon Tower, was about to be awarded the largest design contract in California history. The investor group backing it? E.M. Holdings, my own shell corporation. He had no idea. For weeks I played the part, the dutiful wife, the invisible investor, the quiet architect of his success. Every night he kissed me goodbye for work dinners. Every night I read his messages as they synced quietly to the cloud I owned. He thought he was building an empire. I was letting him decorate the walls of a house I already owned. The night of the gala, I arrived before anyone else. The ballroom at the Fairmont shimmered in soft gold light. People think revenge tastes like blood. It doesn't. It tastes like champagne. Cold, controlled, and perfectly timed. My dress was black velvet, long-sleeved, modest yet magnetic. My mother's diamond earrings caught the light like tiny constellations. I looked like what I truly was, someone who built empires from shadows. At 7:45, Christopher walked in with Camille on his arm. His tuxedo gleamed. Her laughter was syrup-sweet. They didn't notice me at first, but when they did, the color drained from her face before his did. "Elena," he stammered. What are you?" "Attending my event," I said simply. Before he could speak, the announcer's voice filled the room. "And now, the Visionary Award for Architectural Innovation goes to Hale and Moreau, a division of the Moreau Group." The applause swelled. I walked to the stage. I could feel Christopher's panic ripple through the crowd like static. "Thank you," I began, my voice clear over the microphone. "This award means more than I can say." I paused, eyes sweeping the audience until they landed on Christopher. When we built the Moreau Group, we had one goal: to create structures that last. But true architecture isn't about walls or glass. It's about integrity. Without it, even the most beautiful design will eventually collapse. A murmur spread through the crowd. I turned toward the host. "Tonight, I also want to announce a leadership transition. As of tomorrow, the Moreau Group will dissolve its partnership with Hale and Moreau due to ethical conflicts and misuse of company resources." Gasps. Camille's hand flew to her mouth. Christopher's face turned ashen. I smiled gently. Sometimes, in design and in life, foundations must be rebuilt. The aftermath was swift and merciless. The news spread across the industry by morning. Christopher was out, publicly, officially, irrevocably. He tried to call, dozens of times. When I finally answered, his voice was hoarse. "You destroyed me." "No," I said softly. "You built your own ruin. I just turned on the lights." He begged, pleaded, even cried. But the sound of his sorrow meant nothing. You can't mourn what was never real. That night, I poured a glass of wine and stood by the window overlooking the bay. The city shimmered, glass towers I'd financed, bridges I'd restored, dreams I'd shaped. I realized something simple but profound. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. And peace doesn't come from victory. It comes from closure. Weeks passed. I withdrew from public life, focusing on my next project, a foundation for women architects and designers. Quietly, anonymously, at first. People began to whisper again, this time not about Christopher, but about me. The woman who had built everything in silence and then walked away. For the first time in years, I started sketching again. Not for clients, for myself. One morning, my assistant brought in a new portfolio. "There's a letter," she said, "from Christopher." Sighed, I opened it. No apologies, no excuses. Just one line, written in his neat architect's hand. "You designed everything perfectly, even my downfall." I folded it once and placed it in the fire. Months later, I stood at the construction site of my new project, the Haven Institute, a center for sustainable design and innovation. My name would finally be on the plaque. A reporter asked during the press conference, "Ms. Moreau, do you believe architecture mirrors life?" I smiled. "Yes, every structure tells a story. Some are built to impress, others to endure." "And what about yours?" he asked. Mine? I paused, looking at the steel beams rising behind me. Mine are built to last. Epilogue. The sound of glass breaking, sometimes. I still dream of that night, the look on his face when he realized the woman he'd dismissed had built the ground beneath his feet. But in those dreams, I'm not angry. I'm free. The truth about betrayal is that it doesn't break you. It reveals you. It strips away everything false until only your strength remains. They called me the quiet architect, and they were right, because I've learned the most powerful structures are built without noise.